Hi, I'm Brianna Hetherington.
I'm Jen Hatcher.
And I'm Kat Gottlieb.
Welcome to the Conscious Creator Community Podcast. We are over the moon excited to share our wisdom, experiences, and valuable insights to becoming the best version of yourself.
Consciousness conversation. It
Thanks,
is true. Who owns our consciousness?
It needs a moment of reflection, really.
Yeah.
And Brie, while you were talking, I wrote down something you said. I wrote down two things, actually. One is a quote that popped in my mind while you were talking, which I'll save for a second. But the other thing I wrote down, because we know I love to take notes, is you said three words and it just stuck with me, almost like hitting a tuning fork that just vibrates. And you said radically value ourselves. And
Yes.
that's everything,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
everything in every episode we talk about, especially related to these episodes where we are potentially giving away our value and giving away our time and giving away pictures of ourselves and giving away all of these things. In so doing, we are not radically valuing ourselves. And so I wrote that down on a really big. I took up a whole piece of paper because it just, like I said, it just hit a chord so hard that I might put that on my wall behind me or with my dry erase markers, that might be going on a mirror because it's so profound in everything we do, not just this conversation.
Yeah, it's so profound. And it wraps it all up. Like, we need to value our time. Those statistics you were talking about, how much time we spend in social media or on TV. When you look at that, it's like so much time, like days and days and days, where we're just not even aware that whoever they are out there, is shaping our consciousness.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
just, it's mind blowing.
And now I'm reconsidering texting my 20-year-old being like, you want to binge a show with me this weekend? I did do that this morning.
A nice binge is nice, but we are conditioned, right?
So, I might need, she's home for the weekend. So,
But
let's
intentional
watch this terrible
versus
show together.
but, intentional and entertainment versus just mindlessly allowing it to snake into
Valid.
like
Yes.
a parasite
Yeah.
into our brain. Like, it's two different things, right? It's like,
that's
Yeah.
valid. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Well said.
Here's the quote, and this quote is actually a perfect tie-in for as we're going into this next section. The quote that popped into my mind while you were talking, Brie, I heard years ago, but it's so valid, particularly to this conversation. And the quote is, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. I have no clue where that originated, but it was something I heard that stuck with me and related to this conversation, right? My worst, which isn't my worst, but my safest vulnerable place might be me in sweatpants and a ponytail and, I was wearing 3 layers this morning because it's icing and it's cold,
boo.
that's me at my most vulnerable state. So if you can't handle me there, you don't deserve me at my best. And so I use a physical example of that, but it's everything, right? It's
Yeah.
emotion. It's when my mental capacity is broken down for whatever
Yes.
reason. It's everybody should be in a safe place where your relationship allows that full spectrum of feeling and being safe and being vulnerable. So,
Yep.
so part of why we're seeing this broader cultural shift right now is, again, life experience, questioning those cultural messages that once were accepted, messages about beauty and, you're not supposed to sit around in your sweatpants in 3 layers. You're supposed to look so cute because that makes you desirable. Yeah, see, I'm the example of our topic today. Messages about what empowerment is supposed to look like. And instead of performing to those expectations, many people are starting to redefine them or let go of them altogether.
And I love this because now we're kind of circling back to what is potentially kind of been a positive result of some online things where you see the pushback in conversations that is gaining, a collective consciousness about body positivity, aging naturally, rejecting unrealistic beauty standards, prioritizing authenticity over appearance. It's the yin to the yang of what we've been talking about. And the idea that many women are simply saying, I am not performing anymore. And for me personally, a personal story, I remember when I turned 50 as a very pivotal time. 50 is when like women, we're changing, right? By the way, I also just got to throw this in there. Men are changing too, but society loves to pretend that they're as virile as they were when they were, 20. But men go through what's called andropause. Like nobody talks about that, but they do at about the same time as when women go through menopause. Anyway, so when I felt a change right about that point in my life, about 50, on how I seemed to be perceived in the world. And it kind of felt like getting a elbow, like get into the sidelines so that the younger and more supple have the center stage. And at first, it felt kind of depressing. And as an artist, I created this piece of art in this like really depressing poem. But I had it posted on my blog at one point, but I'm like, I got to take that down because it was kind of really depressing. Like, oh, this is the end of life. But then I turned a corner. And the corner was when I realized that that whole process was actually a superpower because I I was no longer being focused on the opportunity was that I was no longer confined to society's definition of beauty or sexual attractiveness. So I would say to myself, I can dance like nobody's watching because guess what? Nobody was watching anymore. And that was so freeing. I did not attach too much. I didn't not to my appearance then and now, but I didn't like being labeled one way or the other. But I do want people back when I was younger, I didn't know how to articulate it, but now with more life experience, I can say I want people to see me for who I am. Someone with lots of thoughts, perspectives, life experience now, lots of heart and soul and confidence that was created from all of that, the good, the bad, the successes and the mistakes. And I am so much more than what can be defined by external standards or by society or by the social media. And ladies, when I tell you that every decade gets better, I can attest to that. I would not want to be any younger, except maybe if I could sleep like I used to, that kind of shifts as you get older. But I would not trade anything for who I am now. Like I earned my own love. And that is one of my proudest personal accomplishments. And to be loved by my close circle of friends and family, like you guys here, that is what it's all about for me at this point in time. And it's all about like what it is all about for me in relationships, real life versus the online stuff.
Love that you shared that, Kat, and that you fell in love with who you are. I think once you achieve that, in the inner world, your entire external world begins to
Yes,
experience just that.
that is it. That is it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what you just described. So beautiful. And when that shift starts happening internally, it often changes all of our relationship dynamics. Because when someone starts performing for attention, they begin prioritizing something different in their relationships. They start looking for respect, emotional safety, and trust rather than just attraction or validation. Studies in developmental psychology show that as people move through adulthood, many transition from what researchers call impression based attraction towards attachment based connection. In simpler terms, early attraction often centers around appearance, status, or how exciting the interaction feels. But long term relationship satisfaction is strongly tied to completely different factors. Research from the Gottman Institute, which has studied thousands of couples over decades, shows that the strongest predictors of stable, fulfilling relationships are things like emotional responsiveness, mutual respect, trust, and the ability to create psychological safety. Not appearance, not attention, not how many people are interested in someone. And this is where the pattern becomes clear. When people stop prioritizing attention as a marker of value, they often begin choosing partners and building relationships based on qualities that actually sustain intimacy over time. And that shift can completely change the kinds of relationships people are drawn to. And I also think part of the cultural awakening we were speaking about earlier happening right here and now is the more people are starting to recognize how interconnected all of this really is. The same handful of digital ecosystems shaping what we watch and believe are also connected to what we buy, eat, stream, scroll, and aspire to. Yes, large asset managers like BlackRock have major stakes across many public companies, from media to food to retail to healthcare, to the same thing as one company literally owning everything. In many cases, these firms are giant stakeholders and stewards of investor capital, often holding single-digit percentages in thousands of companies. That still creates enormous structural influence. But the language matters if we want to stay credible. What concerns me most is not just the ownership on paper, it is the cumulative effect of concentrated influence on human consciousness. When the same broad systems help shape what we consume for entertainment, what we consume for news, what we consume for food, and what we consume for identity, we have to start asking deeper questions. Are we choosing? Or are we being conditioned to choose from a menu that was already designed for us? And again, I don't shape that from fear. I shape it from awareness, because awareness is what gives us our power back.
And that awareness translates into confidence, right? You can't be confident if you're not fully aware of what's happening in your life. And so this is where the real transformation begins, because that confidence, and again, authentic confidence, is very different from attention-based confidence. Attention-based confidence and choices, like Bree was just talking about, they're fragile. It depends on approval. It depends on the reactions of the people you're at the table with or that you're interacting with. It depends on whether other people validate the version of you that they're seeing online or in person, that they're interacting with in some way, shape, or form. And authentic confidence functions completely differently. Authentic confidence says, I know who I am. My sense of worth doesn't rise and fall based on someone else's opinion. You are human. I am human. we are still going to ask other people questions sometimes that may seem like a lack of confidence, and it's not. It's asking questions because we're still human, right? So let's see what some of those questions might look like. Attention-based confidence might ask, do people like me? Do people think I look good in this? Authentic confidence asks, am I showing up as myself today? Do I respect myself? Do I feel good? Because when people align and begin building that kind of confidence, several things start shifting in their lives, which we've talked about, right? You're setting stronger boundaries. You're not chasing validation. You're choosing relationships based on authenticity instead of performance. That's what this episode is about. You can start looking for people who see you clearly, not just people who give you attention. And I'm going to ask, or I'm not, before I ask you ladies a question, I want to add a note here that is important to me, and I'm sure it's important to many of our listeners as well. I believe there is also a time for people who aren't necessarily in a place yet where they're in a place where they're seeking the relationships for people who see them clearly and where they can show up vulnerably and authentically. There's a time, and you might be in this right now, dear listener, that I want you to ask some questions of yourself. Are you a serial dater? Are you capable of being alone? Because very oftentimes we can find ourselves going from relationship to relationship or dating multiple people at the same time, which I'm not saying is wrong. I'm just saying if you're constantly seeking that attention and you're trying to be in a relationship, but you don't give yourself breathing room between relationships, are you showing up authentically as yourself in those relationships? And I'm not sure what I'm trying to say is coming through clearly, but I hope it is. You know, if you're in a state where you're scared to be alone and you're going again from dating multiple people or relationship to relationship and you're not taking any downtime and if you're really honest with yourself, you're scared to be alone, you need to ask yourself some of these questions that we're talking about on this episode today. Am I respecting myself? Am I radically valuing myself? Am I choosing me first?
I think
That is
that
all,
is great wisdom, Jen. Really
like,
good
it's
advice.
all part of this,
Yeah,
right?
it sure
Yeah, I
is.
couldn't agree more. That really landed for me. I
Mhm.
think I've done the most healing and fallen in love with myself by spending time with myself in
Yeah.
solitude and being able to really get to know who I am authentically without all the noise or people telling me who I should be or what makes them happy and trying to appease to that. So I love that you brought that up. I thought that was really well said and landed for me really, really deeply.
Grateful it made it through.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that that point of, spending time with yourself is so important, to get
Yeah.
comfortable with the person that you are before
Yeah.
you can it's like cleansing the palate, right? Before you can get into the next relationship. It's just
Yes.
figure out who this one is right here.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
And
yes, yes.
I want to
So,
just layer
oh,
in on that and add one
please.
more thing that, for all the listeners out there, when I did finally take that leap to spend time with myself and fall in love with myself and do the inner work, what showed up in my external world was a reflection of that, which was my wife, Vanessa. And I feel like, we just talked about that with you, Kat. Similar thing. You fell in love with yourself. Then all the right people came to you. So it's
Yes.
doing that inner work to create your outer result.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, same experience for me. When you have the courage just to fall in love with yourself first, amazing
Yeah.
things can happen. So,
My story's not dissimilar, everybody. It I genuinely got comfortable for the first time in my life, loving me. I was enough. I was whole. I didn't need that attention from somebody else. I was not
Yeah.
seeking love. And I wasn't seeking any relationship, quite honestly. But then it showed up, this authentic relationship that's everything we're talking about in this episode. So if you're, listening to all three of us, to get comfortable with yourself, radically value yourself. I'm going to say that 100 times now that Bree gave it to us.
So good.
So good. Be authentic with yourself. Be comfortable being your rawest version with yourself so that you can show up that way with other people. Even if you have 3-foot walls, even if it's hard to be, intimate with your feelings, you can get there. But unless you're true to yourself first, it's going to be real challenging. So let me ask you both one more question before we wrap up this episode. Bree, when someone truly has grounded confidence, the kind that isn't chasing attention, how does that change the way they show up in relationships? And I feel like you touched on this a little, but give us a little more.
Yeah. So first, they're not performing anymore. They're not trying to impress, prove their worth, or constantly seek reassurance. Instead, they're able to show up as their authentic self. That creates a completely different energy in a relationship, one that feels calmer, more honest, and more emotionally safe. When you're grounded in who you are, you're almost much clearer about your values and your boundaries. You're not willing to sacrifice your self respect just to keep someone's attention. And that clarity tends to attract healthier dynamics because you're choosing connection from alignment rather than from insecurity or validation. Another big shift is that the focus moves from being liked to building something real and meaningful. Grounded confidence allows someone to be present, to listen, to communicate openly, and to handle challenges without becoming defensive or reactive. So instead of relationships being driven by excitement, attention, ego, they start being built on things like trust, mutual respect, and emotional safety and shared growth. And in my experience, that's where the deepest, most meaningful relationships are truly formed. When two people are not trying to complete each other or impress each other, but are simply meeting each other as whole, authentic individuals. And what I think this is we need more media literacy, more nervous system awareness, more conscious conversations, which brings us to this podcast,
Yes.
more courage to question what is being normalized in our culture, and more responsibility for what we allow in our mind and body every single day. I do not believe human beings were designed to be endlessly manipulated by outrage, vanity, fear, comparison, scarcity, and consumption. I believe we are powerful creators. I believe we are awareness itself. I believe we can choose differently. And that doesn't start by waiting for the whole system to change overnight. It starts by asking, what am I consuming? What is it creating inside of me? And does it align with who I truly want to become? Because real freedom is not just political, it's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual. And one of the most important things we can do in this era is protect our own consciousness. Kat, if someone right now is still in a phase where attention feels like confidence or attention is good enough, what would you want them to understand that might save them years of life experience to realize?
It's a great question because it's an opportunity to kind of say, hey guys, hey listeners, if that just hits you like, whoa, just rewind a couple of minutes ago, because I think we were talking about that. Take some time to get to know yourself at your core, at your most rawest, most honest core. Who are you? Because the greatest love affair is the one you have with yourself. That radical accepting of ourselves. It's that whole idea. What is that, Jen? Can you remind me?
Radically value ourselves.
Yes, the radically value yourself. So start today by giving yourself all of the love, attention, affirmations, and authenticity that you desire from somebody else. And I will layer onto this for anybody who might be thinking your best has passed you by. It is never too late to create a passionate connection to yourself.
Wow. That is really, really powerful. And I'm so grateful both of you just showed up fully today and shared your insights on this. And if you're a listener right now and you're like, okay, I'm listening to this, I'm connecting with it, it resonates with me, what do I actually do with it? So I'm going to give you 3 places to start. Now, we gave you some good nuggets throughout, but here's like 3 takeaways, right? Okay. Number 1, notice the attention loop. So pay attention to moments when your mood changes based on approval. This can mean so many different things. Some things it might mean is likes, compliments, recognition, approval. If you're in person and you show up at a party and somebody doesn't compliment your amazing dress that you're wearing, are you now in a stinky mood? And now you're going to go have 3 gin and tonics because you're cranky about it? Like, this happens every single day. I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying it was me at any time. I'm just giving an example. Pay attention to moments when your mood changes based on approval. Genuinely. Just noticing the pattern is the first step to stepping outside of it. And as we often tell you, this requires self-reflection. Paying attention to your feelings and journaling them will help you see these patterns. All right, number 2, my friends, is ask a different question. Instead of asking what gets attention, start asking what feels authentic. It's that easy. What feels good? You might be in a place where attention feels good and that's why you're seeking it. We talked about that in an earlier episode. I was in that place. I did that. But when you change the question of what feels good, what feels authentic, you will still get the good juju and all the endorphins bubbling up that you want versus seeking the attention only. That shift alone can completely change decision making and how you confidently show up. People will not only see, but they will feel the difference. You might hear a phrase like, something's different. I can't tell. So what happened? Did you dye your hair? Like, they'll go to the physical aspect, but that's not what it is. It's your authentic confidence coming through. People will feel it. And I can't wait to hear about when people feel it. We love when you give us feedback. All right, number 3. This one is critical. So we're going to put a star by it or exclamation points. Bust out your highlighter. I don't care. Whatever you have, this one's really important. Build internal validation. That's where you're loving yourself exactly as you are, because you are enough. You are worthy as you are. Look in the mirror and say, I love me. That's really scary, by the way, if you don't love yourself yet, but you have to do it and you have to repeat it over and over. Because as Bree talked about and as Kat talked about today, confidence and relationships become much more stable, i.e., we're not jumping from relationship to relationship, when it's built on values, when it's built on character, when it's built on shared understanding of purpose versus appearance or attention. So, over the last 3 episodes, we've talked about something that touches nearly every part of modern life. We've talked about the attention economy, how algorithms amplify whatever captures attention the fastest, and how that attention is altering our behavior and sometimes even our identity and how we are showing up in the world. Those systems literally can shape your life, especially when you're young and especially when you're still learning who you are. Today, we talked about how when people have a little more, I think I used the word deliciously seasoned life experience, they start questioning those rules and don't feel like they have to play by them anymore because they don't. We never did. We just didn't know that without the life experience. And so the rules that were once acceptable and what was once normal and what was once okay no longer is. And as part of this entire conversation, we're building into something else that's big and scary coming soon. But of everything we've talked about so far, none of this means that you did anything wrong. Unless you're the person who's perpetrating on other people, trying to get them to do things that make them uncomfortable, then you did something wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm
Then
trusting
stop
that as
that.
yeah, and stop doing that. I'm trusting as a listener of this podcast, that's probably not your norm. So thank you for being a good human. But if you fell into these patterns, if you fell into these behaviors, you didn't do anything wrong. Again, you're human. You need to give yourself grace. We have all done these things. We are all navigating the systems that were built to capture attention, not necessarily to support healthy identity, healthy relationships, or building your confidence. And as Bree talked about so eloquently today, once you understand that, once you have the awareness or the awakening that some psychologists are saying, you gain the ability to step outside of it. You don't have to play by rules that weren't built for you, to choose authenticity over performance, connection over attention, self-respect over approval. Real empowerment isn't about how much attention you receive. It's about how deeply you know, respect, and love yourself. Now, if this conversation connected with you, if parts of the series so far made you pause and think about something with your own experiences, identity, confidence, or relationship, we've created something to help you explore that further. We are releasing the Self-Worth and Authentic Identity Reflection Guide, specifically for the Conscious Creator community. And inside of it, you'll find reflection questions to help you recognize attention-based identity patterns. You'll find exercises for strengthening that internal confidence, and you'll find prompts that help you reconnect with the parts of yourself that exist beyond appearance or approval. And you can download that guide right through our show notes or on our website. Last, certainly not least, I'm going to say it every single episode, we encourage you to share this episode with someone in your life who might benefit from hearing this conversation. Because the more awareness we bring to these systems, and the more we can share, the more freedom people have to define themselves authentically. And that's really what conscious creation is all about. Not about performing for the world, but becoming more deeply aligned with who you truly are. Thank you for joining us so far in this series on identity in the age of algorithms and the hypersexualization happening in our world today. We look forward to seeing you on the future episodes, not only of this series, but in the Conscious Creator Community podcast. And we hope you stay strong. We're sending you love and light always.